Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's about around 6:30, and um, basically, you're probably wondering if I'm doing this audio recording in my room, and the answer is no, I'm not. I'm actually walking around the house right now. Oh, because my mom left early. She actually left about 25 minutes ago, for work. The reason being, basically, is because tonight she has a class, and my only thought is, she wants to, get to her job early so she could sit in the truck and, um, study her homework. Well, actually, it's not supposed to be any homework with this class, but still, she wants to study a little bit, and she wants to study a bit so she can have it memorized, so that tonight when she goes and learns more about it, she can at least try to do it, without that much help. Basically, the class she's in is where the teacher, does sort of one-on-one with you. The teacher will go around to the students that need help and help them because, of the situation that they're in. She's in a class right now because she needs to learn how to do math on a computer. And I think a lot of people might agree that that is not the easiest thing to do. I think you might all agree on that. But that's not why that's not why I'm doing this audio video, if you will. No. See, the reason I'm doing this is I want to kind of publicly apologize to anybody out there on DeviantArt, Infinite, or anywhere, or even here on the YT. Now, first of all, just because I'm publicly apologizing doesn't mean I'm not going to stop. All right, doing what I like to do. I'm not gonna stop requesting or commissioning what I would like to see or read. All right, I want to make that perfectly clear. I basically want to publicly apologize to those that kind of get confused, if not, they just don't understand. Now, I've stood up and done rant videos. Stood up and done. Like I said, I've stood up and done some rant videos on camera through audio. I've done some writing on it. I've text, if you will, you know, why I'm a fan of certain things and why I like to see these certain things become a reality through requests and commissions, and let that cool down a little bit. But like I say, why I like to see these things become a reality through requests and commissions and stuff. So I basically want to apologize. I really do. You see, some people, I'm sure a lot of you just don't understand why some people like me, you know, why we like the melting, if you will. Why we like the melting gag, or as TV Tropes calls it, the lustful melt gag. Why we like music videos, creative music videos like Sledgehammer from like Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer from the 1980s. Why we're into things like the UBs and the SVs, and the reason I'm kind of shortening the names there of those situations, or those fantasy situations, is I don't want anybody else uh, here on the YT kind of going like, what did he just say? Because I'm pretty sure some of them may not understand. But anyway, of those things, along with, like I say, with the lustful melt gag, the melting gag, the creative things like what we saw with Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, the shape shifting and the transformations. You know, I wanna kind of publicly apologize to those that don't understand. You see, some of you do understand, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure anybody else that's um in my situation appreciates that too. But I publicly want to kind of apologize because I don't. When I come onto DeviantArt, when I come onto DeviantArt or Furfiniant, or even if it's possible here on the YT, and I commission and I request somebody to create or write, to create a webcomic or a picture, or to write a story, or if it's possible, and let's say I have the money down the line, create an animation that could be posted here on the YT of, let's say, an established female character. Let's say a character like, say, how do I put it? Let's say an established female character of, let's say, Gadget, Hackwrench from Rescue Rangers, or Sally Acorn, or Lola Bunny, or whoever. Let's say I want to commission an animation of them melting into a puddle after being kissed by the male equivalent of who they are. Or I want to see them kind of do their reenactment of the Sledgehammer video, especially the fruit face scenes and claymation scenes. I know that might confuse people. Or maybe have an animation done to where you see them drinking some kind of potion that gives them the power temporarily to shapeshift into anything they want to be. I basically publicly want to apologize if that kind of stuff confuses anybody, not just from that possibility, which has not yet happened, but from the other possibilities that have, from the writing and the requests through webcomics and pictures. Because I know it does confuse people. There's one person known as 93 over at DeviantArt that I've mentioned before. I mentioned him in the fan recommendations, and I want to apologize to him a little bit because, and I hope he's listening, because I know there are sometimes that I've done requests and commissions to him that kind of throw him off a little bit because he's like, wait a minute, is there a meaning behind this? Is there some kind of spiritual reason, some kind of like religious reason? What's going on? And I've apologized to him before, sort of, and kind of basically gave him a better understanding that there's nothing spiritual, there's nothing religious about these stories, that these are just fun stories for the characters to be part of, and nothing else. It's just lighthearted, fun, mature fun, if you want to put it that way. It's it's just overall fun. That's it. And again, I know it confused him at first, and that's why I have to tell him, look, I apologize, and if you, heck, as an alternative, as a way to show that I was sorry for confusing him, I said, you have an alternative. I'll give you an alternative. You can go with this story, or you can go with this story. One was a story where, some girls were trying to recreate the Sledgehammer video. Some slime girls, or whatever you want to call them. Another was about a girl who loves huge bubble baths, to the point that when she takes them, that the only way she'll take a bubble bath is if the bubble bath is so high, it encompasses the whole freaking room, the whole freaking tub, to the point that when she disappears into the bubble bath after it's all said and made, and when she disappears and settles down in it, the whole thing just engulfs her. In other words, she just completely disappears inside, and that from the outside, he even put this in the description of the story, you don't even know there's a girl in the middle of all that. All you see is just a mountain of bubbles, and that's it. And he liked that one. And I said, hey, it's more of a comedic tone because it has more of a lighthearted. I told him basically it's a comedic story because think about it this way. If they were to do something like that in a movie or even a television series, they took the main female character and let's say one of her main goals, let's say it's a sitcom, okay? Let's say it's a sitcom. And let's say one of her main goals, one of the main female character's goals for that one episode, and always seems to constantly get interrupted, but she finally does accomplish it, is to take a bubble bath, right? So let's say her goal is to take one, but then she decides, you know what? when she finally achieves that opportunity, that, you know what, to make sure I don't get disturbed, one, I'm locking the door, and I'm gonna make this thing. I'm gonna go take my bubble bath, and I'm gonna go take my bubble bath in an area that's gonna allow me to have bubbles so big I'll disappear in them, and then nobody will find me there. And something like that, or even in a movie, something like that. You kind of get the idea. That's basically what this story was about, and he appreciated that. Because, I said, look, I'm sorry if I confused you. Here's the reason. Here's your, basically I told him I was sorry. So, like I'm doing now to not just him again, but to anybody else listening. I apologize to you guys for confusing you. It's just that when you see these kind of stories, or you see these kind of things happening, and you're a fan of these kind of interest, you want to see some of these things come to life. You want to see some of these things become a reality. You don't want to just have to say, oh, well, I'm only going to see it through animation, or only going to read it through comics, or read it through regular stories. Hold on for a second. I just had to get myself a drink of coffee there. I'm sorry. But anyway, like I said, you always want to see it happen in other medias and other mediums, Anytime, I'll tell you this, anytime a show would do that, okay, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of shows at times that will take a main character, if you will. Either it's a main villainous character, or a main villainous character, or a main hero character, or heroine character. And even for that one episode, they will give them the powers sometimes to be able to do or be anything they want to be. You take a look at Gosling, Darkwing Duck, and Slime OK, You're OK. She had the power to basically of a slime girl to the point that she could be whatever she wanted to be. I mean, there's even one scene where, Darkwing's trying to cure her, and separate her from the slime, and all he did was separate her into tiny little goslings. And that's all he did. And then she was able to recombine together. Sort of like a character on DeviantArt called Fanzin. You see the character on DeviantArt called Fanzin, who's created by Doodly Dude on Morpha Mansion, basically is able to separate herself into a lot of different little, basically a lot of different smaller versions of herself. So there you go. Anyway, like I said, there's that. You sort of had the situation with Mary Jane Watson in the Spider-Man cartoon series, where they sort of did the clone thing, but what they did, they sort of did an adaptation of the clone thing with her, but instead of, instead of having her made of something, I don't know what they had what they had the Gwen Stacy clone made of in the comics, but they had the Mary Jane character made of water, giving her the ability to be and do whatever she wanted to be. In RoboCop Alpha Commando, you had an episode where you had one of the main villain characters, or villainous characters. Can't think of a name. I'm trying to think of her name at the tip of my tongue. Elsa Ludstink, or something like that. Elsa Ludstink. This Elsa is the main villain. This main villainous character's first name, and in this episode, she is set free by some of her fellow cohorts, if you will, some of her fellow cohorts. She's set free by, like I said, by one of her fellow cohorts. When they give her the special formula that for 24 to 48 hours allows her to become a liquid woman, a woman made of water, and she could basically use this to shapeshift herself into any form sometimes. Excuse me. In fact, there's a scene, kind of like 10 minutes towards the end, 5-10 minutes towards the end, where she basically turns her entire body after, her partner is being interrogated. She turns her entire body into a big old hand and presses a button with her finger. That's all she does. And she's able to combine with all the other water elements. So there you go there. You had an episode basically where, you had in Buzz Lightyear Star Command, you had an episode where all the characters were de-evolved back to their prehistoric roots. And Mira was de-evolved into a freaking bubbling liquid amoeba that you could actually stick your finger in and all that. So, and then wipe it clean because it was so, you get the idea. Basically, that was Mira Nova's prehistoric de-evolution, was into a liquid amoeba. So, like I said, there you go. And then you had the crawling flesh where her and Buzz melted into a freaking slime monster or whatever it was called. And she was the first one to melt. Literally, she was the first one to start melting. Becoming liquefied, or whatever you want to call it. So there's that. You had, of course, the ink character in Batman Beyond, which is a fan favorite. She had that power. And then, to top it all off, you want to go live action, there's Alex Mack, that for about 4 or 5 seasons ran on Nickelodeon, very popular. And one of her main powers was the power of liquid. Her able to melt down into a silvery puddle and all that. So, to me, to see that done in all those other kinds of media, and being a fan of that kind of stuff, it makes you want to do that stuff. Not want to do that stuff, but it makes you want to see that stuff get done. It makes you want to see that stuff become a reality, in other medias. It makes you want to see that stuff become a reality in other medias, and I want to see it become a reality. I do. But I also understand that it does confuse people, and I truly apologize for that. And I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I'm not trying to confuse 93. I'm not trying to confuse JYHC, Grape, if you will, who's doing What Dreams May Become series. I'm not trying to confuse MVL, who's another person I've requested a story from, or anybody that's listening to this right now. I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I'm not trying to confuse 7951. I'm not trying to confuse Dana. I'm not trying to confuse Kabulzel. I'm not trying to confuse Kai or anybody that I'm mentioning. Because all I'm asking for them when I request or commission is to just do something fun with the characters that involves what I'm requesting. It's nothing confusing. It's nothing like, oh, well, it's nothing for them to go like, oh, well, that sounds a little weird. I don't think I want to do that. That sounds too weird. I don't do that. I'm not trying to weird anybody out. It's all in fun. It's all in fun. And I think anybody listening to this would understand it. I think everybody understands that it's all in fun. When Grape, allowed people like me and others out there to request and suggest transformations for his core character already in a recently uploaded chapter of What Dreams May Become, and a continuing chapter that comes out later, for her to become anything because he's doing a transformation-thon with the character. You think we'd be weirded out? No. You think he's weirded out? You think he would be weirded out? No, he's not. There are several ideas I gave him he's actually used so far. He's interpreted in his own way. And Poppy's going to do individually in the next chapter and in later chapters. But no, he is not weirded out. No, nobody should be. It's all in fun. It's all in fun. I mean, think about it this way. Think about it this way. When Peter Gabriel was set to do his video on Sledgehammer back in the 80s, do you not think maybe the people that were working on it with him, kind of creating how it was going to be shown on MTV, do you think they were not at first weirded out? Maybe they're kind of taken aback, like, okay, wait a minute. When you're singing the fruit cage lyrics, you want all this fruit to basically surround you and make you into a fruit vase? That's a little odd, or when they did the claymation, it's like you just want your face to turn into different things. Like you just want your mouth there, and all of a sudden you turn into a yin. All of a sudden the yin yang sign becomes your temporary face, and then you have the water that, then all of a sudden you become fish out of that and into a water, and that water rises up, and all of a sudden your face is like. I mean, do you not think they were weirded out? Weirded out at first? Do you not think they were? Of course they were, but when Peter Gabriel gave them a better understanding of what the video was going to be about and why this was happening, and once they listened to the lyrics, it was more along the lines of, oh, okay, we get it. We got it now. We understand. We know where you're going with this. And the rest is history. Of course, that's just my interpretation of how it first came about, but still, that's just my interpretation. The point is, the point is, I'm not trying to weird anybody out. I'm not trying to scare them. I'm not trying to weird them out. I'm not trying to confuse them. I'm just trying to see these things become a reality out of fun. And again, I publicly do apologize to anybody I might confuse. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to confuse you guys. I'm not trying to scare you guys or anything like that. I'm not trying to weird you guys out. This is just stuff I'm fans of. This is just stuff I like to see happen because I'm a fan of it. It's like I said, it's like I said before, and I'll say it again. In fact, I said this in a big text that I posted on DeviantArt, which you can read. I'd actually years ago, about a year before I came back out, I had paid somebody a little over $200. And this, I think, I can't remember when I started paying this person, but this I'm pretty sure maybe this was before I came out for my birthday in 2006, or maybe it's after I came back to Kansas. I'm not really sure. But I paid this person a little over $200. And why? Because I wanted to see a certain story, even if it was a short story that I did, become a reality through webcomic form. And for a little around $200, they did it. Yeah, it was pricey. But you know what? Even though the person may have been weirded out at first, they're like, you know what? I've drawn some other stuff. I mean, I've seen what this person's drawn. And sometimes it's a little risque, if you know what I mean. But the thing is, they understood exactly what I was going for. And they took my story and brought it to life to a T. That's what they did. They didn't have to do it. They could have rejected and said, hey, keep your $200-something. I'm not doing this. It's too weird for me. No. They actually did it because they understood, yeah, it might be weird, but if they want to see it so badly that they're willing to pay me this, so be it. And that's what happened. And I apologize. I think I did. I can't really remember, but I think I did apologize to the individual by saying, I'm sorry I kind of weirded you out and all that. But I was just determined to see it happen. But, that shows you that price-wise, whether it's through DeviantArt points or regular currency that sometimes you have to transfer from what yours is to what UK is or Europe's is or China is or whatever, or Australian money, whatever. It shows you, shows you that for an affordable, for a price, for a certain price, people will be willing to do that, even if it might weird them out. But again, like I said, I'm not trying to weird out anybody. I'm not trying to weird out anyone. And I'm not trying to confuse them. I'm not trying to scare them. And I know I sound like a broken record here, but I just want to say that I'm sorry, and I do apologize for that. It's just something that, when you see all these other medias out there, that you just want to see a lot of these medias finally take that on. There's one person that has done that, and their name is CL, over at Fanfiction. CL2, we'll just put it for short, CL2. And they've done a story, basically, where they've taken the Sally character, and they've basically gave her the powers of elasticy, in other words, shape-shifting, rubberness, if you will. And she's able to basically use this new power to shape-shift her body into whatever, or melt it down into a semi, if not pure liquid that can flow through air ducts and everything and reform. And she's not the only character she's done it with. She's done it with Lola. This person has done it with. This person has done it with Lola Bunny, with Brainy from Crypto, with Sasha from All Dogs Go to Heaven. You know, she's done it all. I mean, they've done it all with these with certain characters. And when I read these stories, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with the characters having that ability. There's nothing really wrong. And the ability and this new ability gives them, you know, that opportunity to shapeshift into whatever they need to be, or liquid down into what they need to be. So, and they're not afraid of it. They're not afraid, and nobody's weirded out, because technically, when you take a look at it from a story sense, and almost like an episodic sense, it makes sense. You know, if you look at it from an episodic sense, it makes sense. Because all you're doing, basically, even if it's temporary, giving the character for a few episodes this power to be able to become anything they want to be, or melt down if they need to. And that's why, like I said, I'm not trying to weird anybody out. I'm just going by what I've seen on television in other episodes and stuff. And like I said, if it has weirded people out, if it's confused people, I do apologize. I apologize, because all I'm trying to do is make this a reality, make these stories and requests and commissions a reality. So I'm not trying to confuse 93. I'm not trying to confuse anybody that's listening to this. I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I'm just trying to make something become a reality. And that's all, either through regular requests or commissions. I'm just trying to make it become a reality because I want to see it happen. So I do apologize to all that are listening, and I will say this: I am going to continue requesting and commissioning this kind of stuff, but don't be so weirded out by it. It's just out of fun, and that's it. There's nothing spiritual, nothing religious. It's just out of fun, and that's all you have to do, and that's all you have to take it as. So again, I do apologize. I'm sorry if I sounded like a little bit of a broken record this morning. It is early. It just turned 7 o'clock. So again, I do apologize, and hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from. And that's all I'm going to say. Let me know how you guys feel, and I'll talk to you later on.